Hello, hello. Welcome to the latest Late Challenge. I'm Gareth Roberts, he's Mo Stewart, and we are, of course, talking about Liverpool returning to action after Diogo Jota passing away. We're going to talk about the brilliant displays of respect and affection shown towards him, how great Preston North End were, and how great our club have been. Let's give our own club some credit here, that how they have handled all of this as being nothing short of brilliant, and that particularly goes for the manager. We're going to talk about his statesman-like interview that he did, the only media that there was before or after this game that took place at Deepdale, and rightly so. We'll talk a little bit about the football that took place there too, albeit that it comes with the massive caveat that it is pre-season, and then it's pre-season when this has happened too. We'll talk a little bit about some of the latest transfer links that are out there as well. And then we're going to talk about the farcical Club World Cup and the laughable Donald Trump and whatever he thought he was doing on the stage there. The whole thing was frankly bizarre, but yeah, we'll get into all of that. But before all that, I just wanted to say thank you for all the nice feedback on last week's show. It's always difficult to know if you called things the right way and if you did the whole situation justice, really. But plenty of people said we did do, and we appreciate hearing that back from you. And other people said it helped in certain ways and things like that. So that, again, brilliant to hear that. And glad you're still here, still watching, unlike some beauty who gets offended by us being childish and disrespectful. Not about last week's show.
Well, technically, that's not even us. It's one of our guests.
It's one of our, it's someone who stepped in. He unsubscribed from paying us because it was too childish and disrespectful for his liking.
Although, I maintain he's still watching. So
hiya, mate. You know what Mwah. You weirdo. Anyway, so Preston v Liverpool. Usual stuff in a pre-season friendly in terms of two different sides and loads of subs and breaks and all the rest of it. So we'll come on to all of that. But first of all, I think you've got to sort of say this must have been and looked not only can we assume it must have been difficult, we could see it was difficult because, when all the great stuff that Preston had orchestrated around it, and, someone on the pitch singing and, players taking floral tributes over and all the rest of it, when all that's going on, obviously you can see the camera going on certain players and one or two of them struggling with the situation. You even saw it during the game as well, didn't you? Bradley upset, Mo upset. Not nice to see, obviously, but they did get down to playing some football as well, and obviously the tributes from the crowd. So not only Preston as a club, but Preston as a set of fans, brilliant as well. And all told, in terms of a game played in those circumstances, it couldn't have gone much better, really, could it?
They were first class, all of them. Yeah. You can tell, like you say, that some of them really struggled and some more than others, but it sounded like it had been a group decision to play the game. Everyone came together. And I must admit, when I first heard that they were going to play it, I was a bit surprised. I thought, maybe this is a bit too soon. But the more I thought about it, the more I understand why. Because there's 2 weeks between the game yesterday and the next game. So it's almost like they all know that they have eventually got to get on with the job of winning football matches and get back to some sort of normality. So having this kind of one standalone game allows them to just kind of dip their toe back into it, see how they're all feeling. It's like, look, okay, it's not like we're going straight back into a game every 3 days, training, like the hardcore of it. This is almost just like a little taster. See how you do with it. See how everyone feels about it. And if you're still not ready or if it's still too much, don't worry. We've got another 2 weeks before we have to do that again. So in terms of that timing, I think it worked really well. And as you say, I felt like Preston were really, really good hosts, not only, but I think there's obviously the historical connection with Shankly, with Liverpool and Preston. So, and we've had some good players. I think a couple of loans have gone there and done well. So there's generally a good relationship between the clubs. I think we've played a couple of pre-season friendlies against them as well in the recent past. So there has always been that kind of familiarity between the two. So yeah, they were first class. I have to also say, shout out to them for giving Freddie Woodman a bit of shit in the second half as well. Because it's like, it was all fun and games. But it's like, oh yeah, it's still a football match.
Yeah. Made a good save.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. But yeah, it was, for me, it was strange because I went into it just thinking, wanting to make sure everyone was okay, really, and not really having my analytical head on it. But
I mean, that was my worry before, and I still sort of felt it, you know, when it took place, really, that there was a bit of a almost like voyeuristic aspect to it, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt a bit like, you know, you're invading on a group of people who are clearly struggling with, you know, what's happened and the shock of it and the grief of it and all the rest of it. But, you know, sort of now it's done, if you like, you know, and you can look at it post-event, you kind of like, I hope that it's been good for them in some way to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it was good for me because there was definitely a couple of moments in the first half where my brain kicked into the fact that I'm just watching Liverpool playing football. And you're starting looking at things. I know we said that pre-season doesn't really matter, but there's still things you notice and there's still things you kind of like, you know, bookmark or say, oh, well, that's something interesting to maybe see how that develops. And obviously we're going to go and talk about Rio and Gamora and stuff like that. But there were a few other bits and a few other players. Obviously, Chiesa playing as a striker and like Salah having the armband and Robbo playing the centre half in the second half and a few other little interesting bits. And it was kind of almost like, without even realising, it's like, oh, I'm back in Liverpool football mode. And for me, that was a comfort because it was like, I wasn't sure if I would be able to get easily back into that mode. And just like all the same with the players, we're all in a similar situation where we're not sure if we're going to be able to get back to doing things the way we've always done them. But when you do it, it's almost like instinct takes over and you don't really have to think about it in the same way. So that pleased me. And then obviously some of the things that happened in the game, I loved Nunez in particular. I mean, obviously Gakpo does the Jota celebration when he scored as well, but Nunez does both of them. And I mean, we were talking about different players doing things differently. He's always been an emotional character, hasn't he? And he's really looked like someone who this has hit him hard. So I really felt that it looked like it was going to do him some good to play positively and to score a goal. Because obviously we have to acknowledge the fact that a lot of the times when he's played for Liverpool in recent times, there's been another narrative of him not playing well and him getting inside his own head, There was none of that. It was just him going out there free, playing football, thinking about his mate. And it looked like it actually did them some good. So I'm pleased for that.
Yeah, I read quite a nice thing once about like, you know, grief and shock and that kind of thing. And I haven't got the attribution. I can't remember who actually wrote or said it first, but I just quite liked it and I thought about it today in respect of this really, which is that with grief, when you've lost someone, when there's been the shock of something like this, it's never going to truly go away. And what this person said when they were sort of trying to, you know, put it down on paper or say out loud what it is, and they said they see grief as like, if you think of it like a tree, so the tree's always there, but like more branches will form and sort of grow around it, and so, you know, everything's carrying on, but there's always something there as well. And I kind of thought that's a good analogy, if you like, of how this would be, I think.
Yeah.
I think over time it would become easier, obviously, but equally, you know, I think some of the decisions Liverpool have made, you know, we talked last week about if Liverpool are going to permanently retire number 20 from the club, it should be done in consultation with the family. Yeah. That's exactly what happened, and I think that's the right thing. The family have obviously said they do want that to happen, and then that's it. It's been retired at all levels, right through the club, announced at 20 minutes past 8 and all of that kind of stuff. Great touch, great thing to do, very respectful, and most importantly, I would say, like I said the other week, in conjunction with the family. I still think that there can be, and again, I think I might have said this last week, so sorry I haven't repeated myself. I still feel like there can be like another step as well, again, if they want it, in terms of, I feel like there are a lot of people out there who sort of want to do something or want to show something, and they're not sure how or why, or you know what I mean? Like a
place to channel all those feelings.
Yeah, essentially. And maybe, you know, I think a lot of people want to sort of like like, is there a cause Diogo and his family cared about it? Could they set up a charity? Could there be a foundation? And, could there be like a Diogo t-shirt that benefits that cause or that family?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like people want to show the respect and maybe throw some money at something, like a positive out of a negative type thing. Absolutely. But I don't know what the answer to that is. I obviously don't have that conversation with his family and stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind betting someone inside the club there will be thinking something along those lines.
Yeah, I do think that's something we'll hear more about in the fullness of time. But like you say, I think there's a natural instinct for all of us to, like you say, try and get some positivity out of the situation. It's something that not only Liverpool but football in general have been quite good at. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see something like that come through at some point in the future. We'll have to wait and see on that.
With Slot as well, I mentioned, I'm sure everyone's seen it, so I'm not going to read out the full interview with him, but, if you haven't seen it, look it up. His words were brilliant and brilliantly delivered. And as part of that, he said, let us try to be ourselves, be yourself. Don't think you have to be different than your emotions tell you. And he talked about, whether, like, if people didn't feel like training, that was fine. And if they wanted to, that was fine too. And I kind of feel like him saying that suggests to me that, they have almost done like a full consultation, a full sit down, spoke to them all. You would imagine like the psychologist at the club and things like that, the chaplain, there's lots of brilliant people at Liverpool behind the scenes. They would have spoken to them as a group and individually and said, do you want to do this? Do you want to play in this game? And it seems like, I think it's come from the squad that ultimately they did want to play that game. And obviously you got those moments, you got that 7 minutes at the end with the fans, the players, the manager, the staff, all sort of coming together at one end of the ground. And as I said before, no post-match media, no pre-match media. I think that was spot on. That was kind of another one of my worries about it, really. You just wouldn't want someone stuck in front of a camera and for them to go, or, for them to be upset and for it to not work and, that become a story and all of that kind of stuff. So I think how they've decided to do it, and obviously ITV have had to play a part in that as well. I was going
to say, fair play to them.
Fair play to them. And all their coverage was really good.
I thought so.
They did the homework, and, the nice stuff like, even like the programme that Preston produced and all of that kind of stuff. It was all absolutely spot on. And just to go back to what you just said there as well, again, we're repeating ourselves a little bit, but the thing about that we kept emphasising last week about people handle it differently. It's not the same for everyone. Some people might want to play, others might not want to, like what Slot said. I was looking into, everything's slightly different, obviously, but there have been tragic events around football before, not least at this football club, and then players have obviously been asked to play, in a short space of time afterwards. And I was thinking about that contrast of how different people have handled that. So you remember like Aldo literally talked about he wanted to hang his boots up, and he just couldn't take it. And when you think about where we are now about sort of mental health and all the rest of it, he probably wouldn't have been asked to in the modern age, but back then it's very much like crack on type of thing. But when I was doing a bit, I obviously remembered about Aldo, but I was also thinking about other events, and I found something which I found interesting, obviously going a long way back. But after the Munich disaster, obviously eight players died that night, and as well as some journalists, staff, etc. But Harry Gregg, the goalkeeper, talked about playing again in his book. And he said, playing football saved my sanity. I couldn't get to the ground quick enough for training. And those brief moments spent running, diving, kicking, arguing, fighting, they were my escape valve. Yeah. And United after that disaster, they played in the FA Cup 13 days later.
But I do think that that's a real thing. And I think that, again, something that transcends football. You hear so often of people, particularly people who've been doing the same job for so long, and particularly a job like football where there's so much routine, there's so much things that are the same. So Your training is a certain amount of time, then you have a certain amount of downtime, then the preparation for a match always tends to be the same. There's a reliable amount of routine where you don't really have to think independently. You don't allow any kind of sadness or grief or any kind of negative thoughts to move in. You're just getting on with your normal routine. That doesn't surprise me that would be of some comfort, because it's like, okay, I can deal with it. This is my kind of rock. This is my kind of base level. I know what this is about. I can deal with this. Everything else he'll deal with in its own time. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of them wanted to go back into football, because football is all they've known for most of their adult lives and a lot of their childhood as well. So there is going to be some comfort in doing that thing that you always do, even if it does feel different without one of your best friends around. So yeah, that doesn't massively surprise me. I do think, though, like you say, it's important that just because most people think that way, that if there was anyone who didn't, they were given the space to do it. And you mentioned Slot and his statesman-like and how impressive it is. I do think when you think about the differences between him and Klopp when he first arrived, most people were like, well, he doesn't really need to do any of that stuff. He's just here to win football matches. Klopp very much found all that stuff came naturally to him. And it wasn't an act with Klopp. It just came natural to him.
Yeah.
Whereas this is someone for whom maybe it doesn't come as naturally, but he was thrust into this position and he's dealt with it absolutely admirably. And having seen him around for the last however many months, doesn't surprise me at all. I think he's always had that within him, whether or not it's something that he tries to portray day in, day out. And when you're a leader of men or women or just a leader in general, I think a lot of those things are an innate, they're within you, where you know when you need to lead, you know when you need to step up and guide people. And yeah, I think that we are lucky, and that group of players are lucky to have a man like him at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we always say it, don't we, that, this job, being the manager of Liverpool, is definitely, or maybe even infinitely more difficult than many other jobs in football, just because of how demanding we are, how mad we are about football as a set of fans, what this city's like, what this club has won and done, and it's standing in the world game. And we've said so many times, haven't we, that, to be the manager, it's not just, and it was not, he's the head coach, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
But so as the head coach, even now, he's still expected to be 1,000,001 things. He's still expected to always say the right thing, always do the right thing, recognise how we feel, represent the city, represent the football club. And, he's done all of those things brilliantly. And, we worried, didn't we? I worried about that, when he first come in. It's like, okay, yeah, you've done it at Feyenoord, but this is different kettle. This is different gravy, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then in these circumstances as well, wow. And it's like, the words were so spot on. How they were delivered were absolutely spot on. And as you say, he's been a true leader all the way through from day dot, really. And as much as it's so sad what's going on, and we're all still sort of dealing with that emotionally, he's emerging from it, isn't he? And I just like, you're just like, oh my God, like you've nailed it, Anna. Do you know what I mean? Like when I seen that interview and just thought, that's the only interview, but that's all the only interview that's needed.
Yeah.
Because everything that needed to be said is in there. You've done it, you've said it, and it's spot on. And like I say, anyone who, for whatever reason, hasn't seen that, I do urge you to go and get involved with it.
I also thought as well, so there was the moments in the game where there was like the cooling breaks and stuff like that. So there was a few breaks where just kind of, because it was so bloody hot.
Yeah.
And it was notable to me that he was still doing the football things. He was still kind of pulling players aside and saying, okay, well, I like this, and maybe do a little bit more of that, and making it, again, as normal as possible. It's like, look, I know that there was all of this around it, but this is a football game, and so we're going to treat it like it's a football game. And when you're involved, and kind of what you said about doing things the way Jota would have done them, he loved playing football more than anything. And when he was in a football game, he gave it his all. He was never distracted by this or that or anything else. He was in that football game. And so it felt like Slot was honouring him by being the same way and trying to kind of make sure everyone else was on that same page. And yes, as we keep saying, the result didn't really matter. To a certain extent, the performance didn't really matter on the day. It was more about putting things in your legs, getting ready for when the serious football starts again. But I think that everybody can come away from that game thinking, okay, we did it. We got through it. And once all of that obligation on the football match was over, the bit at the end of the game that you mentioned, those 7 minutes, it was really moving to watch, because we've seen so many pictures of players paying their respects at the ground and all of that kind of stuff. And as you say, we've seen the social media posts from players speaking about it. We've heard Arne Slot talk about it. And we've seen so many different things from fans who've said certain things and have expressed the way they felt. This was the first chance for us to come together, fans and football club, and just almost give each other a big hug. The way that they were just stood there, it was almost like, first of all, they were just applauding them for saying, thanks for coming. We know it was hard for you as much as us. But then there wasn't about that anymore. It was just about being together.
Yeah.
And the crowd didn't even have to say anything more than just sing the song. The words of the song said everything everyone needed to say and everyone needed to hear.
It showed what, yet again, all of this reaction, everything, how the club have handled it. It shows that, like a lot of people, outside of our bubble, if you like, outside the Liverpool bubble, don't like that we slap ourselves on the back all the time and say how great Liverpool are, how there is a point of difference about our club and how we support it and our city and all the rest of it. But this just shows, yet again, that we're absolutely right to say that. It's been so well handled, and there are more challenges to come. There are more things that the club has to continue to get right that will fall on the shoulders of individuals inside the club. But you'd absolutely back them to get it right, because they've got everything right so far. To take conversation on them, we will talk about sort of, some of the actual football, obviously with the massive caveat that it essentially means nothing. It's a warm-up, it's a leg stretcher. And let's remember that Pepe Reina once played in midfield for Liverpool in pre-season. So, it really have to emphasise, we shouldn't be sweating the small stuff here.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
It just, and like you've got no Virgil, no Wirtz, no Konate, no Diaz, no McAllister and no Alisson involved in this game whatsoever. And then also as well, I mean, you can go and do your own research on this, and some of the people who are already being weird on the internet, because that's what the internet does to some people, just go back and look at pre-season results in the past and then look at, what happened the following season. And there's absolutely no correlation between the two. I mean, Liverpool were European champions, and then in the summer of 2019, they lost to Borussia Dortmund, Sevilla and Napoli, and then they won the league. And they absolutely pissed the league as well. So let's remember things like that before there's any kind of madness about something that happens in pre-season. But yeah, in terms of stuff to take from the game, you mentioned them already. A 16-year-old kid, second youngest player to ever play for Liverpool, involved in the Bradley goal. He was boss, wasn't he?
It was fantastic. Someone who just made me smile every time I watched him.
He was like one of the first bits in the game, wasn't he? He got it and immediately started running at people, and you were like, oh yeah, I remember this lad. Yeah.
And we haven't seen him since January in the FA Cup game against Accrington, and you already noticed he's a little bit bigger. And I mean, obviously, when you're around that age, those things happen quickly. Like there is a growth spurt that happens around that time, and it looks like it's hit him because suddenly it's just like, oh, was he that big when I was?
I know, yeah. He was putting himself about as well a little bit, wasn't he? Like he was like, he was having a good battle with that fullback, wasn't he? Yeah, and it was like,
there are things that you notice about young players, and again, we've already said that this is pre-season, and he's 16, so there is still so much to go in terms of his development, so much to see in terms of if and when he can make it to be a first-team player. But in terms of the raw materials, there's no doubt he's got it. And the things that I like, two things in particular. One, the teammates kept giving him the ball.
Yeah.
Like they were in no doubt that we can give this guy the ball and he can do damage. And Preston were putting 1 and then 2 and then 3 players in and around him, and he was still able to make it work and still able to find teammate. 2, the one thing that normally lets young players down is decision making. Like, he was great when he was running with the ball at players, but sometimes when you're a young player, particularly in that situation where you're coming in with all the big boys, you feel like you've got to do everything and show the world everything you can do every time you get the ball. He didn't. It was like there were times when it was just like, okay, so the best thing for me to do with the ball is to pass it 5 yards to that fellow over there. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't have to impress you every single time. And you know what? If you're a coach or a manager, that's the most impressive thing. It's not how many flicks or tricks or how many men you beat. It's, do you do the right thing for the game, for the team, for that moment? And the fact that he's able to spot that now, like, I mean, I don't want to incriminate myself, but put it this way. I was nowhere near an adult or doing any kind of adult things when I was 16 years old. I may have been working a job, but, you know, I didn't really care about it. So to have that kind of intelligence, that kind of awareness, that kind of confidence to be able to show your best in so many different ways, it's just mind-blowing to me.
It's just lashing Rio on his shirt now, isn't it? Yeah. Saying he's gone from Ingamawa to just Rio on the back of his shirt.
You probably heard every single commentator absolutely butchering his name. Yeah. I thought, let's just go with Rio, shall we?
I did wonder whether that might have played into it. Thank you to Alternative FM Internet Radio, who's thrown a little £2 super chat in there and just says, class by Preston North End, football helps.
Yeah, it does.
And so he was very sharp. He looked good. Szoboszlai as well, I thought, was looking good, looking sharp. Unlucky not to score. The goalie, big, isn't he?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that was something I noticed as well. It was almost like
6'6".
Yeah, there's one moment where he comes for the cross and he gives it the big punch, and it's just like,
yeah,
ooh,
yeah,
and like,
I enjoyed the punch.
Yes, and sometimes with goalies, you just think, oh, I just wish he'd catch that, but when you can punch it like that, when you can literally punch it to the halfway line, sometimes that's all right as well. Yeah. But I mean, we've generally been really good defensively for most of our time. But last season there was a little thing with like free kicks from wide. We were a little bit vulnerable to those. If you've got a 6'6" keeper who can just come out and go, I love that, thanks. So they're going to make a big difference on that score. So you start thinking, oh, I can see where he can really be an advantage to us. And yes, we do still have the best goalkeeper in the world, so he is going to start as the number 2 guy. But I also think that Liverpool have got themselves in a situation where they can afford to give Alisson as much rest as he needs so he doesn't get injured like he has done for the last 2 seasons. And hey, like, it's one game and it was 45 minutes, but it was enough to make me feel like I want to see more of this guy.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, you know what, you're right. Look, facts are facts, and Alisson has had his injuries. So, you know, if this fella's stepping in when that does happen, touch wood, it doesn't, of course. But yeah, interesting. What else was interesting? Well, loads of people, I mean, you mentioned them already, and loads of people are talking about him, not least in the comments on the live show right now, but also seeing lots of stuff on social media post-match and today. Everyone is again talking about Darwin Nunez. New haircut, scored a goal, did the celebrations like you say for Jota, or dummies the ball for Gakpo as well. So I guess the question is, has anything really changed? And you know, I can see people in the comments saying, I hope we keep him, I hope we give him another chance. Can't say I'm on that page, I've got to be honest with you. I mean, you know, sound yesterday against Preston North End in a pre-season friendly, but I've seen enough to suggest that he still isn't quite the fella we want him to be.
Look, we were talking about this when we were talking about Robbo, the difference between the human story and the business. From a human point of view, I would love him to have a real good redemption arc.
Yeah, be boss. Look, if it happens, Sam.
Yeah,
I want the best for Liverpool ultimately, and if he ends up being part of it, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
But I fear that the manager might have already seen enough.
And it almost feels like anything positive we see out of him in pre-season is basically just going to fortify his transfer value. So if there are clubs out there who think that they can maybe lowball Liverpool and think that, oh, well, they don't really want him, so we'll just offer them a smaller amount and eventually they'll say, yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. So Napoli, if you really want him, then you know what the price is. You're going to have to go and put that up there. But yeah, I think I'd be very surprised if he does suddenly turn into the player that we all thought we were getting or hoped we were getting. But it does also prove that I do think in a different situation with different tactics and maybe different pressures on him, he can still be a decent footballer for someone. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go somewhere else and do well.
Do well, yeah, I think that can happen. I think if you're building it around him and you're setting it up for him and all the rest of it, it's just whether he fits with what Slot wants to do and he fits around, the players we've already got in and the players we're maybe looking at and things like that. And I'm just not sure, to be honest, but we shall see. Their goal, I spotted something and I thought, not this again. A little fella marking a big fella and them scoring. Yeah. Can we jib that?
Can we not do that? Yeah. Yeah. It was funny, wasn't it? Because you think, you see the goal first off and you think, God, well, that was a bit easy, wasn't it? And then you look at the replay and you're like, that's why it was so easy. But, I mean, if you think about the second half team, there wasn't a massive amount of tall people there because you've got Amara Nallo, who is probably the tallest that was left there. You've got Robbo playing centre-back. Then you've got Curtis and Endo, who aren't the tallest themselves. Yeah. So it was pretty much Nallo and Nunez were the only ones of any decent height, maybe Gakpo. But it can happen. But yeah, I think in general, I wouldn't necessarily hope. I'd hope to say that's not something that we're going to continue to see. But I'm also a bit like, you know what? For all that we said about Preston today and how great they were, let them have a goal to celebrate. Like Liverpool win the game.
I thought they did all right, to be fair.
Yeah.
They at times playing it out from the back and all that, and they looked all right. Looked like they were playing decent stuff.
Well, considering where they were in the Championship last season, you would have thought a team at that level wouldn't have been able to do.
And they start slightly earlier than Liverpool as well, don't they? So maybe a slightly
further
ahead of Liverpool. Anything else, anything else, or anyone else that sort of stood out for you that you'd give a shout out to?
So the right back battle in general,
it's interesting, isn't it?
I'm fascinated by it, because obviously Conor Bradley would have seen all the talk about Frimpong coming in and all of the potential for how it's going to elevate the team and yada. A lot of it talking about from an attacking point of view. And then you watch the way he played in that game. He wasn't, obviously the guy who used to play right back for Liverpool wasn't really a right back a lot of the time. He was really a forward a lot of the time. Conor was a forward. He was in and around the box a lot. And then obviously to be where he was to score that goal tells you everything. And he scored a goal. And then the other guy comes on, Frimpong comes on, and you're like, but I like this guy as well. And we didn't see a whole lot, but again, the little flashes, there was one moment where he had to chase back.
Yeah, you saw his pace.
Not only did he chase back, he just nicked it perfectly. Didn't break stride. The player didn't even fall over. He's just like, cheers, I'll have that. We'll go back this way. And you're just like, okay. So the idea that the two of them will be pushing each other to greater heights, I'm all for it. Big time.
And obviously Frimpong can play further forward if necessary and all that as well. Yeah. So it is that interesting, isn't it? And that, same thing really. I just thought if Conor Bradley's performance in the first half was a t-shirt with a phrase on it, the t-shirt would just say nah. Because he's not having it.
Yeah.
He's not having it. He's defo fighting for that place. What about the Kirkes fella?
I thought again he was maybe a little bit more nervous than Frimpong. I felt like maybe he was playing a little bit within himself, but again, you can see what he potentially can bring. That thrusts going forward and the ability to go on the outside and go on the inside. I think he's someone, and how it works with having both him and Frimpong or Bradley, to be fair, when they're both attacking as well, that's going to be vital to how next season goes, getting them two in tandem and getting the whole team to kind of work around what that looks like. So, yeah, I mean, he certainly threw himself into it. There was that moment where he got booted in the head. And but I kind of thought, you know what, I'll let you have that. You just want to show your best. You want to show everyone you're going to work as hard as you can. And he seems to be that kind of character. He's just going to throw himself into it wholeheartedly. I do think there's going to be an element over the time where Slot's like, well, that's great, but maybe just, channel that into a little bit more, calm, concentrated way of doing it. But yeah, I still think exciting prospects ahead with having him in the team.
Defo. So yeah, some people might say if you've paid that money for Frimpong and he's come in, having been a first team regular elsewhere, it can't go on with Conor Bradley starting.
I know what's coming here.
It can. Sorry.
No, that whole bit was set up for that, just so you know. So
yeah, as Mo mentioned earlier, Liverpool now do have a break until their next pre-season game, which is against AC Milan on the 26th of July in Hong Kong. I would add to that, weather permitting, because having been to Hong Kong for a pre-season tournament in the past, all the best. Yeah. And don't wear jeans at any point. Just do not wear jeans if you're in Hong Kong. If you're going, you've never been before, and you don't believe people when they talk about the humidity, don't wear jeans. Just at no point wear jeans. Then they play Yokohama FM, presumably not a radio station, in Yokohama at 11:30 on the 30th of July, and then Athletic Bilbao, 4th of August, 2 games at Anfield, 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. So that's that. Bit of transfer gossip then. Now, long-term listeners or watchers will remember that when I've been banging on about what I used to do in the past and when I worked for the Daily Sport, etc., and when it got to this time of year and, it's a bit weird and you're looking for different ways to do content, one thing I introduced when I was at the Sport was, let's put all the transfer rumours in every day and then rate them as to whether they're truth or turd. So let's do that.
All right.
So the first one is Liverpool have opened talks. Gone this far with it, like Liverpool have opened talks, not just linked, open talks to sign Crystal Palace striker Jean-Philippe Mateta, known to be a red, as they seek to boost their attacking options, according to reports in France. Truth or turd? Truth or merely turd?
I'm going to say this has got a bit of a hint of a chud nut about it. So, a little bit of a turd. And that's...
How many turds out of 5?
I'm saying 2.
2 turds out of 5?
Maybe 2 and a bit.
So you're leaving a bit like it could be true?
Like, I've been surprised in the
It's
past.
28, isn't he?
That's the main
That's
reason.
a bit... That's the bit where I think that's not very...
No, but I have...
Edward Zetal.
But he's in the last year of his contract. He's a proven Premier League goal scorer. And he... Put it this way. If you sign Mateta, that doesn't mean to say that you're not signing any other forwards at any point in the next 3 years. So, if there is a player who they really want to sign as a striker, but they can't get him this summer, you maybe sign Mateta and then look to sign him next summer. That makes sense to me because
Do you think he fits stylistically? Like?
So this is the interesting thing for me. I think he can do because
it can.
Sorry, that's fine. One thing that he is good at is he's good at linking play. Like he's good at having one or two other fast technical players around him. If you think about the way that Palace play with Ismail Assar and Eze, or even Kamada, a lot of the time he's the target man, but he's doing little 1-2s and running into space. He runs the channels. He's intelligent. He's good on the ball, and he's got a range of finishes.
Yeah, including that belter against Arsenal.
Exactly. So you can sell it to me to say that if you got someone like Florian Wirtz, if you got someone like Mo Salah, If you've got someone like Dom Szoboszlai, all intelligent, technical players, like doing little 1-2s, spinning into space, like I can see a world where he fits that. But yeah, there's a part of me that's just a bit like, I'm not 100% sure that if Liverpool were really in for him, we'd be hearing about it now. He feels like the kind of one where Liverpool would just kind of like, ta-da! Like they did with Endo, where there was no build-up at all. It's just like, oh, Liverpool signed someone. Who's that? Oh, yeah, him. Like, we are allegedly in deep talks with Crystal Palace already around Mark Gahey. So, for Liverpool to open talks, all it would have had to be is like a sentence at the end of that meeting where it's like, what about Mateta then? They were like, what do you mean, what about him? It's like, well, how much? And then they'll say, about 25. And we'll go, all right, we may come back to you later in about a month's time. See ya. Like, so much of this forward chat, there's so many moving parts, and it's like, when one domino falls, lots of other domino falls, because you've got Isak. Bingo. If anyone said, how many times are you going to mention Alexander Isak? Bingo. Newcastle wanted to sign a new deal. If he decides he doesn't want to do that, then the clock starts ticking. Newcastle are apparently trying to buy Ekitike, and they say that they want them to play together.
Yeah. You're right.
So yeah, if they are successful with that, then obviously that means that the other fella might have to move on. But yeah, there are lots of moving parts around Liverpool and forward position. So
I've got a moment here where I think I can be childish and disrespectful, by the way.
Oh, hello.
Just in case he's watching. So you may have seen me chuckle just earlier, and it was because I was reading the comments. And this did tickle me because I think this commenter might have a similar mind to me, because this did also cross my mind. And I was like, shut up, no. And so he said, look, it was a sad occasion, but I couldn't help notice that Arne had his slip-ons on. And I also had the same thought. And I thought we'd scoused this footwear by now. I thought, like, you know, he's got on it that, no mate, you know, they're not very Merseyside, them. Don't do them.
He's still
But they were back on.
He's Dutch to the core.
Yeah.
And there's like 4 or 5 of them there now, so he's probably even more comfortable. Look, he's just won the league. He can do what he wants.
Oh, he can do what he wants.
But that's what he's thinking. He's just like,
but you know, slip on watch. They were back. You can't go on with your wearing. No, you can't do 3 in one show. No way. Save it for the subscribers. Right. So you're saying about 2.5 turds out of 5 for Mateta, which feels a bit on the turd fence there. So you know you're not saying. You're not flushing away the idea. So it's still bobbing up to the surface.
It's still not. It's still kind of hanging.
It's a tough flush.
Yeah. It was a tough squeeze.
Yeah.
So it's kind of still hanging. It's
Fisherman's bobber.
Not quite splashed down yet, but you know.
Okay.
Hi, Lindsay.
Next one then. You're right to bring in Isak and Ekitike, I think, as well. So you did well there. Well done, Mo. I think you told the story that needed to be told. The next one is Elliot. Now, clearly his stock is incredibly high right now. Played really well in the under-21 Euros. The latest is that he's valued at £40 million with a buyback clause, or £50 million without one. And West Ham are said to be interested. Now, obviously, they've got some money to spend, and they're also interested in Tyler Morton, it says. So there's two turds for you to rate there. Truth or turd? Truth.
So the more turds, the more likely it's to be not true, right?
Yeah. More turd. So 4 out of 5 turds means it's major turd and it's absolute bollocks. He's not going to West Ham.
So Harvey, I'm saying 3.5.
You don't think he'll be a hammer?
No, and the main reason is that I think he wants to be going somewhere that he's got a good chance to play in European football. And West Ham are a bit of a basket case at the moment. They can be really, really good, but they can also be really, really rubbish. And we saw that last season. They were rubbish for most of the season. I think he's going to want to go somewhere that's a little bit more of a guarantee. Maybe someone that's already got European football, and he will have plenty of choice, because I do think that there's going to be plenty of clubs who are going to be in for him or showing interest in him. However, Tyler, I'm going to rate that at 1.
Because you think that'll happen?
I think that will happen.
I think he's a good player. Him.
I do think he's a good player.
He's just not going to get a game.
I just also think I look at the makeup of the West Ham midfield, and they've got Edson Alvarez, but they're getting rid of Guido Rodriguez. They're not keeping Carlos Soler, who was on loan. I think
got some money to spend. Kudus.
Yeah, obviously. Now
I like him.
I do. I'm surprised he went to Spurs.
I am.
Do you remember when he
thought he'd be aiming higher? To be honest, no.
Do you remember
every sense
when he got sent off and he just went nuts and he was punched one guy, threw a kick at another guy, and all that kind of stuff. That was against Spurs. There's going to be a moment when they get into training and he's going to be like, yeah,
all right, lads.
Sorry about all that.
But he was really good at Anfield, wasn't he?
He was really good.
I was like, player him.
I wouldn't have been surprised if he was on our radar. I mean, I think there was lots of people who were hoping he was. I asked Arne Slot a question about Kudus and his quality when we played them back. It was the second game, so it wasn't a League Cup game. It was the first league game. So I want to say it was back in October, November time. And I put it up on my socials. It's one of the videos on my socials that every now and then we just get a new like. There's more people watching it, and I think most of them are just people in Africa, to be brutally honest. But there's lots of interest in the idea of Liverpool signing him. So it will be interesting to see how he gets on at Tottenham. But yeah, I do think Tyler, he's got that technical ability. He's got the calm head. He can see a pass. And hopefully West Ham are going to be the kind of team that wants to play attacking football under Graham Potter. I can really see him slotting into that team really well. And without being disrespectful to Tyler, I think Harvey's probably going to want to go to a higher ranking club than West Ham.
Okay. And then the last one in this section is Konate. Now, I'm sure, unfortunately, we're going to be talking about this a lot. Just when you thought, we're all done with these type of sagas, another one is unfolding before our very eyes. So it's been suggested that Konate is, and I quote, willing to wait and do an Alexander-Arnold, which has led Liverpool to identify a replacement this summer. However, it doesn't seem easy to find a player of his level.
No.
Madrid-based sports paper AS, well known for talking absolute fucking bobbins, by the way. They claim Konate is being valued at 43.3 million, with Real only prepared to offer 17.3 million to 21.7 million. So a fair distance apart, it would seem there. And then, according to that report, if Liverpool don't get the money they want, they're happy to hold on to him, just like they did with Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk and Salah, and do this whole willy won't he type situation for the whole season long. Oh, great. Can't wait for that, lads. And yeah, some other fella said that Madrid believe Liverpool are willing to be patient on this. I mean, I don't know what bit should we rate his turd. Do you think he's going to end up at Real Madrid?
I think he might do. I really do.
And do you think Liverpool will cash in, or just let him go for we'll just have him for a season, and then if he wants to see out his contract signed, go ahead then?
I think that's more likely. And it's a shame because I feel like he still could and should be the mainstay of our defence for the next 5 years. He's got the ability. I just think that where we're at now, what he wants out of a new deal, I'm not 100% sure Liverpool are yet ready to give it to him. Because I do still think from Liverpool's side, they do still have some question marks about him. Obviously last season, there was only the one injury issue, and that was because someone fell on him. So the idea of him being injury prone, he can say, well, last year I wasn't. And that's partly due to the methods of Arne Slot and training, but also the way that we play and the difference in how we play, etc., etc. But I still think there have been signs when Virgil isn't around that he doesn't step up.
Yeah.
Is still relying on big bro to bail him out a little bit too often for my liking. So if it is true that he's wanting the big bucks and to be one of the highest earners at the club, then that's where the sticking point is going to come. Do I think Liverpool value him at, 7 million more than they paid for him 5 years ago? No.
I don't think that.
I think, as you said, anything that as say should be treated as shit. See that? AS. See what I did there?
Yeah.
So I don't buy that. And this is all part of the tactic that they have of starting to sow division. The worst thing about it, though, is the phrase where it says "do" and Alexander-Arnold, which is bad news for Konate because people were so sick of that whole saga and it ended so badly that if there's any hint that anyone else within the club wants to go down that route, then there's going to be short shrift.
Yeah, I mean, however they think they're going to handle this, one of the options in his armoury for his team is not to agitate for a move. Lad, just no. Really just no. You're best off just shutting up, lad. Okay, well, that's the truth or turd section. We've got to squeeze in something about the Club World Cup because it's in the title. And we've done that. We've done that thing again where it's nearly the end of the show, and one of the things in the title we haven't even discussed, which is Trump's Terry tribute. So Trump's Terry tribute, if you haven't seen it, relates to John Terry, because John Terry famously pulled on the whole kit and pretended he'd won the European Cup when he hadn't even played or whatever, and blah blah blah. You know the story, whatever it might be. Well, Trump knocked round when they lifted the trophy, basically, and didn't fuck off. And everyone was looking at him like, are you going to fuck off? And he didn't fuck off, and he just stayed there, main character syndrome. And it was hilarious. And it was hilarious in a number of ways. This whole tournament for me was just one weird bastard son of a football tournament. I mean, made up rules to get Messi playing. You had Michael Buffer coming on to say, let's get ready to fucking rumble about a game of football. Like, what the fuck? And then, the stuff with Trump was just so bizarre. Everything about it. If you watch the coverage, I just thought I'd watch it because I haven't watched any of it, really. And I just thought I'd watch it to see how bad it was. And it was just... it was so gaudy and horrible and grim. And no wonder he's there because that prick's got a gold tower, hasn't he? But, it's like... The trophy, when they were describing it, saying, well, it's not a trophy, it's an interlocking shield made by Tiffany. And then, get on this, inscribed with Infantino's name twice. I mean, another main character syndrome, Bellem there. What's it got? Who's asked about you, lad? You tit. And now, if you watched any of this and consumed any of the stories around it and don't think football at the very top level is headed to a bad place, then you need to wake up and smell the frigging coffee, because just everything about it. And I have a new hero today, which is the president of FIFPro.
Yes.
Because he's just fucking bailed into Infantino today, compared them to the Roman Emperor Nero, and just essentially said, they've abused their role by creating this competition. They don't give a fuck about the players, don't give a fuck about football. I'm loving them.
Yeah.
Let's have a pint, lad.
And then, so FIFA had that meeting, didn't they, where they were talking about the welfare of the players, and then they didn't invite, they notably didn't invite anyone from FIFPro. And they are the biggest football players union in the world. They've got something like 600,000 members, and there wasn't any representative from them at this meeting. So I'm not surprised they were in on him. The Trump stuff, I mean, I'm not surprised in the slightest. Anybody who knew anything about him knew that he was going to do that. The fact that they were trailing the fact that he was going to come to the final from weeks ago, I knew that this was the only way it was going to end.
Second half, he came out on the 62nd minute.
I'm surprised.
Is he a massive footy fan? Yeah. Did you see him talking about it?
Oh,
where he was going on about Pele? Oh, Lord.
So, have you ever chewed on tinfoil? Because that's what it felt like watching that. It felt like someone had just shoved a load of tinfoil in my mouth and gone, there you go, bite down on that. Because it was painful.
It was horrible. I mean, everything about it was horrible. It looked awful. Like, it was like, it's supposed to look grand and massive and big and all that. It just looked horrible. It just looked like, when you see someone who has got loads of money but no class.
Yeah. I mean, that's him all over.
Yeah, it was just, and everything about the tournament, everything about, like even like they had fireworks. Like, lads, it's daytime.
Yeah.
They don't work. No. All you see is a bit of smoke and that. They work in the night, lads. Just thought I'd point that out for you.
But it's about bringing the Americanness to the game. And it's like showing what we have to offer to the world famous, beautiful game. It's like, no, there are so many other better ways to do it. And even the whole trophy thing is born out of that. So this is the thing we have to remember, right? In American sports, and I don't know if you're aware of this, I might have told you once before, when American sports teams win a trophy, they don't hand the trophy to the players. They hand it to the owners. So, yeah. So when you see the Super Bowl winners, the first person who gets their hands on the trophy is the owner. So Trump is well used to gnarly old white guys picking up trophies. So it would have found perfectly normal for him to still be there. But for all of the Chelsea players and for all of us who are used to football, it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, Cole Palmer was all of us. Because, he's just there. Like, if you haven't seen it, it's just worth watching it just to see his face. Because it's just like, what the fuck's this fella doing? And then he's like, he says, what's he doing? And then Reece James says to Trump, are you going to leave? And then... I mean, I wanted to do a little bit on Palmer. I think we're going to have to bung this into the next show because we're pretty much out of time. But I can't help but like him.
I will say he is the Carl Pilkington of football.
Yeah,
and I just think that there's something about him that's just so honest at all times to a fault. But
did you see his interview? Yeah. It was like, people have been talking shit about us all season.
Yeah.
It's like, lad, you can't. You're not really meant to say that, but it's fucking boss that you did.
One of the people was your own manager. But anyway, but yeah, watching that trophy bit, the thought that did go into my mind was like, if we'd have been there, and if Virgil had been there, I'd like to think that Virgil would have been like, no, fuck off. Like, I don't care who you are.
Do you want...
Yeah, it's like, you aren't part of this team. You had nothing to do with this. In fact, you actually probably harmed it in some way. And
someone's put, there's no way Palmer knew who he was. It could be true, but yeah. Anyway, listen, we will have to go over to the subscriber show now. So if you want to join us over there, please do. That is how you can help us keep all of this going. It is still, despite Patreon's constant insistence that we need to put it up and that it's been over 2 years since we last did, because it's still the original price. It's still minimum £4 a month for an extra show every week, but more importantly, it helps us to keep all of this going. So we'll carry on talking about Trump and Cole Palmer. We're also going to talk about CDs, the forgotten child of music. We're going to get into that, proper owl fella chat about that. We're going to do some of your questions as well, because we got some questions through on Twitter through the day, so we'll do some of them. I've got potentially some absolute chef genius to deal with you, to share with you. And also, if we've got time, I have an additional rant about a Facebook Marketplace bellend. So
and if we don't have time, I'll just hear about it afterwards. Yeah. So yeah,
So if all of that tickles your fancy, come over and join us for the subscriber show. And if it doesn't, well, in a bit, see you next week then, innit? That's been the Late Challenge. Love you, bye!